Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back again with another commentary type video, but this one's just going to be more of like a summary from a high level. This is in response to End Times Teacher, Slavery in God's Kingdom video. And so I promised him that I would respond. And, I'm just going to do this from a high level, just for the few people, again, that I care about, that come to my channel, maybe still come to my channel. But, that's just kind of what's been happening, in the last few months. And hopefully it's very, very obvious that this is the way it is. This is me sort of feeling my way around this world. And, it's interesting. There's a lot of patterns that are developing and are very, very clear. And so, last few months or whatever, I was going on a few of Good Servants Hangouts and then brought to them, my timeline and then, certain things that I believe. And I would say at this point, I know about the Bible. Doesn't mean the Bible is true, but I know about the Bible itself. And, it was the same kind of pattern, just, slander, mild. I'm not saying I don't have that thin skin, but, it was just same kind of thing. And then, back and forth videos. And then just kind of dissolves, and then other people sort of jump in, like write the hand and all that kind of stuff to his defense. And so not a big shocker, it happened again. And it's the same kind of thing. And I just want people to know this doesn't mean that I'm right, but these are just data points, that I'm collecting during this time. Some of it's to kill time, but some of it is to collect another data point. And then it's the same thing with Obadiah's judgment and here End Times Teacher. And so End Times Teacher and I are kind of more diplomatic. We don't get to making fun of his hair or my hair or anything like that. But, we keep it to the scriptures and actual facts, things people say. And I have respect for him on that regard. And so Obadiah's judgment, you can just tell he's that kind of person, he's just more frazzled, if he's wrong. It's a really, really big deal. And, that kind of thing, where End Times Teacher clearly has come to flat earth, kind of the same, roughly the same mechanism I have through, I think he said Russian vids and other people. So, he's been picking up more and more truth, and I give him credit for that. And so he's a bit more fluid, and so, but you can just sense, I can sense with a lot of the GMS people, not just Obadiah's judgment, that, it's just, it's either that way or nothing, and that's fine. I think that's why there's no real point in me going back and forth, unless they have specific questions and want me to give them feedback on their timeline, which they're not going to present because they don't have one. And so, or their breakdowns on various chapters and stuff. But it doesn't make sense, to go back and forth, because I'm basically all in on mine as well. And no one can change my mind, because what I have taught is just obvious to me. That's in the Bible. And I've done my due diligence. And so basically from a high level, though, just to address this video for End Times Teacher, just because he took time to make this video. I hope you guys might understand this already without me telling you this, but really all of our differences revolve around, pardon the pun, the two witnesses, and so not with End Times Teacher, the spinning ball earth, but it's the two witnesses. And so if you all are convinced that you are indeed, the manifestation of that chapter in life and now, then then my interpretation will not make sense, because I state that it's two men and I know who they are, Moses and Elijah. And so that's a very, very different interpretation. And then it alters the timeline completely. And so then this quote rapture, which I actually, I think you talked about this with Rock Upon Him, called it a secret rapture. And I like that term, actually. That's correct. I don't like when you call it a pre-tribulation rapture, because that's not correct. It's a pre-plague rapture that I'm describing through my channel, or a post-tribulation. But a secret rapture, that's fair, because it is a secret if it happens the way that I'm teaching. And so, because clearly not a lot of people know about it, that not only is it a rapture, but the purpose of it is to take away the God's elect, which that's what a rapture, most people would agree, even the 501c3 Christians, but it's to drop off the two witnesses. and there's an exchange, like a balance of spirituality, which just shows how powerful these two witnesses are, that you would have to remove 144,000 men, to balance out the energy of righteousness, on earth. And so, that's the purpose of it. And it's fair to actually call it a secret rapture. That's technically what it is. And so that's a pretty big difference, And so I realized that if you guys are 100%, and you can leave comments or email me, you both, I think, have my email. You can, if you want, to keep this offline and we can go back and forth so it's a bit more productive. But, that's, if you're 100% sure that the two witnesses are not just two men, then I think it's just fair that we have to agree to disagree, because this is what happens. The verses that you're bringing out, I obviously acknowledge those, but they're in the end times when Christ returns with his elect, and that's judgments on earth. So it's not in the kingdom. There's no zapping people or beating people or killing, all that kind of stuff. All those verses are real and literal, where it's appropriate, and most times it is. But when it talks about the elect destroying things, that's here on earth. And so it makes sense, because think about it. You guys believe that in Christ only has one return at this point, and then that's going to be to take God's elect away, and then they're never quote coming back. And so all those verses that are talking about all that destruction and ruling people, whatever, shooting them, killing them, destroying them, wiping people away, destroying the heathens and all that, you believe that's in the kingdom. Because that makes sense, because they're taken away. So they're not taken away and then doing that right away. They're taken away, and then that stuff, all those verses have to be fulfilled in the kingdom. And so all those verses for you, and I don't want to speak for you necessarily, but that's what's happening, And so all those verses, again, if you look at my timeline, they're getting fulfilled here on earth, because Christ is here to take away his elect at the beginning of the Great Tribulation period. And then he returns with his elect after 1,260 days. Exactly. And you can set your watch to it. And so that's the difference, and so they're still the same verses that we would acknowledge, except I'm saying that they're happening here on earth, and those quote heathens are here, and so none of those quote heathens are getting into the kingdom. It's only for God's right hand side, which is the two witnesses, the 24 elders, the 144,000, and the mixed multitude, which are people in all nations. You can't count them. It's just I think you and we talked about, it's on the order of millions or something. It's not billions, or anything like that. Who knows? Only God knows. But it's not like that. It's not a lot. It's not everybody on earth, certainly, or anything like that. And then there's been a lot of people, if you add up all the people throughout human history, I don't think it's that many. Whatever that number is, obviously, I don't know. But it's that's God's right hand side that will be in the kingdom. And so the verses that I would challenge just right off the bat is that Christ says that body and soul will be destroyed in hell, and then hell is going to be tossed into a lake of fire. And so anybody that gets destroyed here on earth, which is hell, their body and soul are getting deleted, and so they're not going into the kingdom. You don't make it past that. They just get removed. And so you can't explain that. And then Christ, or Yahushua, says that the least in the kingdom is greater than John the Baptist. So how is the least in the kingdom going to be acting a fool, and then you need to beat them around and all that kind of stuff? That's preposterous, And then the verses that describe the kingdom in Revelation at the end talk about there being no pain, and no need for even the sun and the moon. And so all your verses that talk about day and night have to be referring to here on earth, because there is no sun and moon in the kingdom. And that's what it says in the Bible, that there'll be no need for that, because God will illuminate the kingdom. And so I can get that verse for you if you don't know what it is. But, that's what the kingdom is, And so all your verses where you're talking about beating people and people going off and then you beating them or whatever back into alignment or whatever with the law don't make sense, given my sequence. And so, just know that. And so really doesn't make too much sense to argue about the back end. It's really the front end that we differ on. Because if we differ here, how is any of that stuff down the road going to make any sense? Because again, you believe the two witnesses are already here as a two nations. And then, there's no need for this first arrival, of Christ to take away his elect and then drop off the two witnesses and then the elect returning, and then fulfilling 2nd Ezra 13, Revelation 14, and all those verses, even in Jeremiah that Obadiah was talking about, and in Daniel. You guys don't understand that my sequence, if you look at the whole Bible, whether that sequence happens again or not, it just shows that pattern is what God has been doing throughout the entire Bible. And so I call it a kernel in mathematics. I don't know what the term makes you guys comfortable, but that sequence, that template, you find that everywhere if you understand correlation. If you took that template that even Obadiah put in his last video, if you take that template and you ran a correlation against all the books in the Bible, you would see that pattern everywhere. And that's what I did at the beginning of this year. If you look at all the different prophetic books that I went through, and then he brought up Jeremiah, and when I read it, I was like, it's the same pattern, and that's everywhere. And so that's something you just can't unsee. And so that's why I have confidence that my narrative is correct, not just because it fits with Revelation, but it fits with the entire Bible. If you take that sequence, you'll see it. If you have eyes to see and you're looking for it, you'll see it everywhere. Daniel, all the major and minor prophets, everywhere. And then that's why I went through the trouble to just kind of reaffirm that it wasn't just a lucky guess, in Revelation. So you'll see that everywhere, and then if you look at that pattern that I showed, where it's always the elect first, then a period of great tribulation, and then the elect returning to destroy, you'll see that everywhere, in the Bible. And so you asked me what verses that I get that from, and I presented the basic ones to you in the comments below, but you'll see it everywhere in the Bible, and so again, I just referenced all those videos that I posted, and I didn't get any feedback from you, so I just assumed that, like you're saying here, that it's at least a sound interpretation. And I'm not trying to convince you of this, because there's the only way. That's why it doesn't make sense for me to really preach, or prophesy anymore. And this is why I was comfortable setting that date, because it doesn't make sense for me to teach that. Because first of all, there's only two options. Either it's true or it's false. So if it's true, how am I going to go and convince somebody, anybody, even religious people like yourself, you two, that that's true? How am I going to convince you that? When you already put in the quote work, you have tahar and 33 years in the truth or whatever. It's not my job to undo that or get you to think a different way, especially if you're 100% sure that, because you all, GMS says they have 100% truth. So, I mean, that's just, we have to agree to disagree, and that's fine. And so, I presented my material, and if you have questions about it, I'll certainly answer it. But that's the fundamental difference, are the two witnesses. That's why I keep harping on Obadiah to bring out a Revelation 11 breakdown, just because, then we could just crystallize exactly how different those breakdowns are. Mine is a very literal and sequential reading of it, almost just word for word, really. The only thing I'm putting in there is who they are. And then also showing that that's a sister chapter to Revelation 16, because the power that those two witnesses had in the past are going to be the same in the future. And they're the same plagues that are happening in Revelation 16. So that's what I believe God told me. And so, again, I can't convince you of that, because you could just be like, whatever, dude, he ate something bad on the January 1st and his stomach was bad and he just had a hallucination, and then he, popped out that, and that's fine. That's, you're allowed to believe that, I can't convince you of that. I can't even convince myself that it's true until it actually happens. And so we just have to, I guess, agree to disagree, because again, like I said, if you have a different understanding on that, on the two witnesses, everything downstream changes, the timeline, all of it. So all the verses that I'm saying are here on earth, now it makes more and more sense that those are in the kingdom, for the way you guys teach those. So that's the main difference. And so it's not my job to convince you of that. I don't even know how to convince you of that. If you don't accept that Acts 1:10 is referring to the two witnesses in Revelation 11, if you don't link Acts 1 and Acts 1:10 and Revelation 11, then that's it. Even teachers of truth ask me, where do you get that in the scriptures? But that's it. That's it. Is that Acts 1:10 is literal. And then the Most High told me that those two individuals are Revelation 11. And then just by knowing a bit about the Bible myself, I deduced that it's Moses and Elijah, because they travel kind of in pairs, just in general, in the Transfiguration and different places in the Bible. So that's why when the disciples were arguing about, hey, can I be on your left and right hand side when you return, they were lobbying for those two positions. They wanted to be at the right and left hand when Christ Yahushua returns. But those are already been decided. That's what he said. And guess what is the metric that God used for them to? They're the most apt to serve, and so that's been decided from the beginning. So I do believe the disciples are here on earth, but they're still part of obviously the 144,000, but that's a very, very special two spots. And the reason is now it makes more sense why they have to be pre-selected, because the whole world's going to hate them according to Revelation 11, and then they're going to kill them. This beast system, which is already established right now, which we both agree will kill them. And so they're going to be tormented, and they're not going to have anybody to protect them because the elect are taken away, and they're the truthers of all truthers. And so most people on earth at that point, I'm not trying to be rude to the mixed multitude, but they don't really care, that much. And they're not going to give up their life or anything like that. They don't know the full sort of narrative. They definitely know about the mark of the beast and not take it, but they may not know who those two people are, and that kind of thing. But because it takes a little bit of depth, but some might, hopefully they do. Maybe God will reveal more and more during those times. But that's the deal, and so it's a very, very elite group, those two. And so groomed from literally the beginning. Moses and Elijah have been doing all those things on a smaller scale, and I'm not trying to be rude, but now they're given that jurisdiction over the whole earth. So those plagues are impacting things going on in the Euphrates, sores, the sun, scorching people, power outages, all that kind of stuff. So of course the world's going to hate them, because somehow God is going to make this narrative where they're going to be to blame. Somehow the world's going to know that it's them two doing it, on behalf of God, of course, and then the world's going to hate them. That's going to be the common enemy. So when Christ returns, he's going to drop them off, and then he's going to go away. People are going to go, what was that? But then they're going to somehow know that these two people are foreigners, quote, foreigners. And so that's the narrative that I believe, that we're on the precipice of. So it sounds like just like any kind of like movie, like sci-fi. Like I can't convince somebody of that, because the only thing that I can say is that if the Bible's true, that's the way it's going to happen. I haven't had any kind of like out of body experience in my life or any miracle or anything like that I can speak to. I'm sure lots of people have. I'm just being completely transparent with what happened. But that day on January 1st, 2020, the day before any of you noticed, and none of my videos even mentioned that. I had no idea like what Revelation 11 was talking about at all, and so I wasn't even actually really that curious about it, because I just was kind of focusing on the mark of the beast. And, if you look at all the stuff that I'm posting prior to that, I'm still reading, the Bible and doing lessons. But the stuff after that, you'll notice a very distinct change in my lessons, my weekly streams, and then my teaching, especially in January and February. It was all prophetic, I just like devoured all the books, and because I was hungry, because I had a narrative now, the revelation was in the right sequence in my mind, in my spirit. And then I was like determined to go into the rest of the Bible and try and find a contradiction, because that's what like I do in school, in mathematics. And so the amazing thing for me is like I found consistency after consistency, everything, Apocrypha, everything, Daniel, Zechariah, all the prophetic books. And so now I know that if the Bible's true and we're living in the end times, that's the way it's going to go down. And so that's really what it is. I can't convince you of that. There's no point in going back and forth. It was it was funny or fun, I guess, a little bit, and all that kind of stuff. Man sharpens man kind of deal. But that's really it. Like it was good talking a little bit about the virgin birth and kind of brush up on that for me, but it's largely unproductive for me to even respond to this video, because the very, very difference, like I said, is the two witnesses. And so I don't know if you know for sure that's what it is. The two nations are basically groups of people here on earth, and it's not just two men that will be here in the future. Then it's just what it is, like that's just, it's just two very, very different opinions, and we'll just see what happens. That's what it is. I'm not saying that to be arrogant, but I'll just like End Times Teacher says to me, if you're right, I'll shake your hand and be your slave, I guess, or whatever, like, and all that. That's fine. I'd rather be End Times Teacher slave than Obadiah's slave, because he seems very, very irritated, and he seems oddly interested in my hair, which most people start losing their hair, and stuff. I'm almost 40 years old, but I don't like his vibe, So End Times, if you're in the kingdom, you're a flat earther, so you'll be higher up than Obadiah for sure. He'll still be figuring out the shape of the earth in the kingdom training course, boot camp. So if you don't mind, if I'm your slave and you're just a bit nicer to me, and give me like the weekends off so I can play golf and all that, I would appreciate that, and then because I've been not that nice to you, but I just don't want to be around him. It just really creeps me out, to be totally honest. So that's the deal. So that's, again, we can agree to disagree. If you ever want to talk privately and not have your views broadcast, and I won't say anything publicly, but you want to talk about certain things, we can have offline discussions. I'm not trying to air out dirty laundry and all that kind of stuff, but like you were kind of getting at, that stuff's just entertainment. Like I think both of us know that we're sort of trolling one another, but we're trolling each other with very, very different views about the two witnesses, and so I'm pointing out how I cannot accept ever, no one could convince me that the two witnesses are here and they're a group of people or anything like that. And that's not even a personal shot to you. That's just the structures that are in place on this earth and how deceptive it is. So I'm never changing my position. So ever, and so if you're never, ever going to change your position either, then that's we can just leave it at that, and we can leave the ball earth, flat earth stuff alone. It's just, to some extent, is secondary to this because you can still sort of get away with interpreting the Bible and coming up with an end times narrative. Not as solid, if you're a flat earther, because then you can take a lot more things literally. But the two witnesses, we can never get our narratives to ever match, like ever. There literally won't even be any overlap almost at all, except Revelation 16, because it's compact and I think we both agree that hasn't happened yet. So that might be the only thing we would agree on, but we would obviously disagree on who's doing that, and then when, that kind of thing. So I teach that it starts when the two witnesses are here. That's the first day, and then those plagues are probably every 6 months, that kind of thing. And so that's the way it'll probably go. So again, this is totally up to God. This is not my narrative, but that's why there's 3.5 years to accomplish everything in Revelation 16. So I'm not trying to duck your things, but I think just for the sake of just not wasting time and then sort of kind of embarrassing both of us more, I guess, not you, but it's just a waste of time, from a practical perspective. And then to be totally honest, I don't like when it gets like making fun of people, the way they look and stuff like that. It's just kindergarten, and then it's gonna make me into a different person that I'm trying to not be, and all that. So I don't want to lead you people down any more of that, and I don't want to go down that either. So that's just not good for anybody, and certainly not the audience. The few people that watch these videos, it does nothing, to give them some sense, which we're supposed to be as prophets, of what's about to happen. And so, again, I would, if you can, and up for it, certainly present your timeline and then breakdown of Revelation 11 and 16. I'd be more than happy to, but to look at that and all that. But again, let's just, you believe that the two witnesses are here. I believe they're to come. And then, like I've said, me waiting for them is not going to be a decade, for sure. No way. So, and I can't convince anybody of that. I don't know how to. I don't know very many people who actually care, and it was just crazy because the Bible is literally coming true. I think all of us would agree with that, but people just don't care, and then I don't I don't have the energy or interest to go and randomly blabber this out to a bunch of people, and they won't understand what I'm talking about, and then, not to be rude, but I don't think you guys understand what I'm talking about, and it's outlandish for me because I don't know that it's going to happen, or even in my lifetime when I'm in the body. So that's it sounds like a cop-out, but I'm just being kind of totally honest about what's going on in my mind. So that's why, me pushing that narrative, that particular narrative, I've taken the foot off the gas completely. So more neutral things that pretty much generically Bible people believe, like the mark of the beast, America being Mystery Babylon, the economic fall of America. I'm posting stuff like that because it's more neutral, you know, like it's not necessarily like prophecy in terms of like, this is revelation, you know, that's not kind of generic to like most Christian channels. So, you know, again, this is not trying to be rude actually, but that's the stance, you know. It's like if the two witnesses are anything but, you know, two men, you know, Moses and Elijah, then my whole narrative falls apart, you know, the whole thing, all of it, because all the stuff going forward is broken because the foundation's gone. All the things that I was correlating in the past are broken. And then I don't know what I was like, a whole Bible, I've just read it with like the wrong kernel or template. And so doesn't mean that the Bible is not true. I want people to understand that. It just means that I shouldn't have been reading it, you know, and teaching it publicly. And so I'm aware of that responsibility. And so I think God is doing this on purpose, that, you know, it's, I have to wait and see too. You know, if we are the saints, we have to have patience and faith as well, you know. And so patience is hard for me and faith is hard for me, but need to try and get more of both, and you know, that kind of thing. But again, if you want to get into specifics about my timeline, maybe you haven't had time to look at it because it's been out for a while. Like I'm talking to End Times Teacher or anybody, I guess. I'm sure Obadiah's Judgment doesn't want to talk to me, but again, End Times Teacher is going to be my slave master, so I'd rather interact with him because Obadiah is just off. You know, I'm not into that kind of complimenting a man or making fun of a man's appearance. I'm not into that at all. So that might be a GMS thing. I don't know, but yeah. So if you want to talk about it, you know, we can set up a live stream and then, you know, not publicize it, publish it, you know, to YouTube or whatever, or just however you want to interact. If you're kind of curious about more of the details. But again, just if you're 100% sure that the two witnesses are two nations, then we'll just agree to disagree, you know, and just leave it at that. And, you know, if you want to consider another option, then reach out to me privately and then we can deal with it like that. So hope everyone's doing well. Bye.